to, oh, were we on? Okay, great.
Okay, there we go. Okay, welcome to our show. I'm Daniel Burke. This is EIR News Live, and we're here, to give you the future. So if you are a future person, if you organize your life based on the one mankind, then this is a place where you're going to get what you need from the EIR Daily Briefing so that you can act powerfully to bring about a new paradigm of peace and cooperation among all nations, which is absolutely our mandate. This weekend had a flurry of activity around the idea of a Bering Strait Tunnel, a tunnel across the Bering Strait between North America and Eurasia, between Alaska and Siberia. And so there's a lot to discuss on that. This has been a really major issue for the LaRouche movement for decades, and it's very exciting, very hopeful, including with certain other announcements. We're going to go through several of the items from the EIR Daily Alert, and then we're going to play a short interview that I conducted with a young student in Uganda who has his own really, I think, wonderful perspective on the emerging new paradigm, with special reference to the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting that took place in China in late August. So with that short intro, now you know what you're going to see. I'm going to pass it to Michelle, who will give us the lead to today's Daily Alert. Hi, Michelle.
All right. Hi. Here is today's lead, written by Jason Ross, entitled Bridging Continents, Ending Geopolitics, the Bering Strait Vision. Discussions of the Bering Strait Tunnel connecting Russia and the United States are heating up. The Russian news service TASS has published an interview with Schiller Institute founder Helga Zepp-LaRouche, who described the project as a symbol of peace through development. She noted, "It is obvious to President Trump that the normalization of US-Russian relations will open tremendous prospects for the development of economic cooperation between the two countries. Most spectacular will be the Putin-Trump Tunnel, which connects the Americas through a 70-mile link through the Bering Strait with Afro-Eurasia, as Kirill Dmitriev posted on X." So, as EIR prepares for this Wednesday, its October 22nd morning event on the project, it has interviewed rail consultant Scott Spencer of Intercontinental Railway, who emphasizes the vast economic and cultural potential of the undertaking. The tunnel would require 5,500 miles of new connecting rail in Russia, Alaska, and Canada to form a continuous international development corridor. This 21st century Panama Canal could advance peace, progress, and prosperity on a scale unseen in recent decades. The estimated cost of the project, between $100 to $200 billion, is a modest investment compared to the trillions spent on perpetual conflict. For a fraction of those costs, we could build not only a physical bridge between continents, but also a moral bridge between civilizations. The expected meeting between US President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin in Hungary will provide a format for discussing the proposal. Before that meeting, Trump may meet with his Chinese counterpart, President Xi Jinping, in South Korea at the October 31st to November 1st APEC summit. South Korea has proudly announced that both leaders will be making state visits, raising hopes of their having a bilateral meeting. But the potential for collaboration clashes with the old habits of confrontation. The counterproductive US antagonism toward China, encouraged by an Anglo-American elite intent on preserving dominance, is imposing mounting economic costs and strategic uncertainty worldwide. The company NVIDIA, their CEO, Jensen Huang, recently spoke about the effect of chip export bans on his businesses. NVIDIA went from having 95% of the market in advanced chips in China to 0. And in the Netherlands, government authorities seized control of Chinese-owned chip maker Nexperia, provoking retaliatory export restrictions that now threaten automotive supply chains across both the US and Europe. Meanwhile, Kuomintang party members in Taiwan have elected Chen Li-woon as its new chairwoman on a platform of peaceful, self-directed development rather than geopolitical entanglements. Chang Li-woon declared, Taiwan must not be a sacrificial lamb on the altar of politics. Peace across the Taiwan Strait is not only the highest hope and blessing for the people on both sides of the straits, but it is a responsibility we have to the region and even to help humanity avert war. The challenge before us is not to manage competition, but to transcend it. We must end geopolitics and usher in a new era defined by the scientific, technological, and cultural development that characterizes our species as distinct from all other forms of life. Engaging people in such a mission offers the chance to contribute something of enduring value to human history. What could be more natural for human beings than developing fusion, increasing our mastery over nearby space, and establishing cultural institutions and traditions that bring out the best in people rather than base instincts? The Bering Strait Tunnel represents more than an engineering feat. It is an emblem of a new era in which security is secured not by dominance, but by mutual advancement. To develop fusion power, explore nearby space, and nurture cultural achievements worthy of our species. These are the pursuits natural to human beings. Building bridges, not barriers, is the true measure of civilization. So that was our lead today from Jason. Beautiful idea.
Yeah, I totally agree. Thank you, Michelle.
These
Thank you very much.
contrasts, do you want to build a bridge or do you want to build something that kills people? The choice would be clear, I suppose.
I hope so. I mean, it's Helga LaRouche today and reemphasized that people should be happy, should be excited by the fact that there are changes happening, especially with these potential meetings between presidents. And so I'm going to take up right now the more material from the Bering Strait, from the developments there. Basically, we have, well, let me share some things. I want to bring up, here we go. Here's our map from the Schiller Institute, and it shows how the Bering Strait exists as a linchpin, a keystone to the total economic development of mankind, of the entire globe. What are the links that need to be made to bring all continents together with rich development corridors? These were laid out, these ideas, by Lyndon and Helga LaRouche over 30 years ago. Take a look at what's happening now. Let's see, I'm going to bring up the following. There we go, which is a view of our homepage. And what we're going to, let's see. Yeah, there we go. What we have in the homepage, you can see if EIR News, I want to make sure you're actually using this as a way to learn more about what's going on. The whole point is get on this. You'll get everything that we're getting on the daily show that we're doing here, or the regular show that we're doing, including the in-depth articles and the articles forecasting this whole development from the past, as from Lyndon LaRouche. So take a look at what's happening. Here is Donald Trump responding to the entire idea of a Bering Strait tunnel. He was asked about this. He said, "A tunnel from Russia to Alaska. That's interesting. What do you think of that, Mr. President? Do you have any ideas? How do you like that idea?" Zelensky, "I'm not happy with this." Trump, "I don't think he liked it." So this concept of the World Land Bridge, which of this crucial project of it, the Bering Strait Tunnel, now it is becoming something that is known across the world and is spoken about by the U.S. president. Something very important is happening. Here's an interview that was referenced in the lead that Michelle read with Helga LaRouche in TASS, which is the Russian state media. And so I will go ahead and read that to you. Just a few paragraphs of it. "A tunnel that would be laid under the Bering Strait and connect Russia and the United States would be the perfect embodiment of the peace through development concept," Helga LaRouche, the founder of the Schiller Institute, told TASS. "It is obvious to President Trump that the normalization of U.S.-Russian relations will open tremendous prospects for the development of economic cooperation between the two countries. Most spectacular will be the Putin-Trump tunnel, which connects the Americas through a 70 miles link through the Bering Strait and Afro-Eurasia, as Kirill Dmitriev posted on X," she said. This tunnel would help to open up the entire far east of Russia for development and provide all raw material poor nations with enormous investment potentials. "The Putin-Trump tunnel would be the perfect representation of the concept of peace through development," she stressed. Budapest, chosen as venue for a new meeting between Russian and U.S. leaders, will help to remind Europeans of the almost lost art of diplomacy, LaRouche noted. "Good for the world," she concluded. Now, it's not just what we're seeing from, for example, TASS. We actually have major news reports. You saw the clip from Fox News, but we also have a variety of other things. USA Today has a title, "A Tunnel from Russia to Alaska. Trump calls Kremlin proposal interesting." We have Reuters, CNBC, and RT all have covered this. So now you're getting into a very exciting shift in the global discussion. And again, in response to this, we heard from our editor-in-chief, Helga LaRouche, today. People should understand we're coming into a completely new era for the human species. It is a moment of branching off to a completely new dynamic that we've never seen before in all of human history. And if we think of it that way, the end of colonialism, the birth of a world defined by peace through development, a world defined by the fate of the one mankind, then we have properly conceived the situation that we're in today, and we can act powerfully, not by being spectators, as we have often emphasized in our publications. So with that in mind, I'd like to go back to Michelle to take a look at the really important situation with keeping this ceasefire, turning the ceasefire agreement into a real peace deal, and seeing a beautiful future for Palestine and Israel. You have a slug updating us on that situation.
Yes, this one is titled Trump Sends Vance and Witkoff to Deal with Netanyahu. And David Shaven gives us, the White House has sent Vice President J.D. Vance and U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to Israel to deal directly with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. It was reported on October 18th, prior to the October 19th airstrikes on Gaza by the Times of Israel, that a U.S. official told them the White House may send Vance on October 20th or 21st to push on the implementation of the next phase in the peace agreement. It is now reported that Vance and Witkoff are already on their way. After differences between U.S. President Donald Trump and Netanyahu on Israel's narrative that the Hamas failure to return all 28 bodies of deceased hostages by October 13th, and a call between the two on October 16th. After that, it was planned that Witkoff and Jared Kushner may need to go to Israel for in-person discussions. Then, on October 18th, Israel's Channel 12 News reported that Vance would upgrade the delegation there to discuss progress toward completing the initial phase of the ceasefire deal. Israel's Gershon Baskin, whose negotiations with Hamas were done in coordination with Witkoff, wrote on October 19th, which was prior to the airstrikes, that Washington needed to push Netanyahu. He said, Netanyahu is preventing the opening of the Rafah crossing. This is not only a substantive breach of the agreement, it prevents heavy machinery from entering Gaza to assist in the location of deceased Israeli hostages. According to media reports, Israel is preventing the entry of Turkish and Egyptian personnel who are coming to Gaza to assist in the location of the buried hostages. Israel's breaches also include the killing of tens of Gazans since the beginning of the ceasefire. It seems that Netanyahu wants to create provocations in order to renew the war. It is a good thing that Vice President J.D. Vance, Steve Witkoff, and Jared Kushner are on their way here. He continues, without the Americans, the war would still be going on. Without the Americans, Netanyahu will take us back to war. Without the Americans, the living hostages would not be home, and Hamas would not be looking for the deceased hostages. Without the Americans, we would not get to stage 2 of the end of the war. With the Americans, I believe this is still Gershon Baskin. With the Americans, the ceasefire will hold. Hamas will continue to look for the deceased hostages. The Rafah crossing will open. There will be a UN Security Council resolution giving a mandate for the International Stabilization Force. The Palestinian Committee for Governing Gaza will be formed. Thousands of Palestinian police cadets will enter Gaza. Humanitarian aid will flow into Gaza, distributed through international organizations, not the Gaza Humanitarian Fund, and Hamas will be disarmed as the process moves forward. So I think not, conclusive of what's going to happen in the future, but I take it as an optimistic perspective from Gershon Baskin on the meaning of these American officials being sent by Trump to go have a talking to with Netanyahu. Daniel?
Thanks. If you look at the situation with the signing of the peace deal, you had Orban there saying very clearly, we need to take this we need to take this spirit and we need to apply it to Europe in ending the Ukraine war. And now he's hosting Putin and Trump, very bold move, clearly following through on that intention. And so you can see that there are tremendous risks and nothing is settled, nothing has been resolved, but there's a motion toward actually maintaining the necessary pressure and bringing about a future. And it's in that context that you can imagine if you have these Gulf states that have been involved in this peace deal actually laying out the Oasis Plan as the way forward, the LaRouche Oasis Plan, as we discussed last Thursday, it would be just a totally transformed situation. And in the context of this Bering Strait discussion, it actually feels like it could happen tomorrow if we put our minds to it and make it happen. So, thank you. Let me conclude this part of the show by showing one more element. I want to show you guys what is happening with Prince Mthembeni's remarks about South Africa. Prince Mthembeni is a friend of the Schiller Institute and EIR, absolutely, and she had the following. In a hugely optimistic message from founder of Africa for Nuclear, Prince Mthembeni, South Africa's voice for nuclear power and a world voice for nuclear energy development, on October 19, she issued an announcement as a result of the South African government's modification of its Integrated Resource Plan 2025, which limited development of nuclear energy in the country. They changed that. Dear world, the wait is over. South Africa just dropped the IRP 2025, and guess what? Nuclear is officially in the mix. Minister Ramokopa, excuse me, my pronunciation, Ramokopa, just announced that the government will lead the nuclear build with plans for 10,000 megawatts of nuclear capacity. Finally, a bold, practical energy vision that says we mean business. To all our nuclear professionals in the diaspora, start packing your bags. Your country is calling you home. To the global nuclear vendors, get ready to work with us. This is your chance to collaborate with local companies and grow Africa's nuclear economy from the ground up. And to the banking sector, Standard Bank Group, Nedbank, Absa Group, FNB South Africa, and every other financier watching from the sidelines, it's time to step into the nuclear chat. The rest of the world's top banks are already investing in nuclear. South Africa can't afford to be left behind. As for me, I'm ready to work with everyone who wants to make this dream real. Let's light up this country, power our industries, and prove that Africa can lead in clean, reliable, modern energy. Of course, the usual detractors will try to downplay this moment, but while they debate, we'll be building. Nuclear is not the future anymore. It's the now. So that's very exciting. And it goes to the next phase of our program. This does bring to the conclusion the section where we're reviewing some of the elements from the EIR daily briefing. I want to ask you, if you're watching this, obviously we're just starting this program. There's not, we need to get it, we want people to get into the EIR daily. That's the whole issue here. We want you to get the information from it, but it's not information. That's not the important thing. It's that there's a conception, there's an idea, like the idea of the Bering Strait Tunnel that has been worked through for decades by the Lyndon LaRouche movement and by Helga Zepp LaRouche herself. Back in 2001, they gave addresses to the Economics Committee of the State Duma with special focus on the World Land Bridge and, in that context, the Bering Strait Tunnel. And then again and again, major conferences and discussions to take this idea of the future and bring it into reality. So we want you to bring people in to this formation of ideas, to this passionate devotion to bringing about the best, to doing the good, but to doing it with these from the standpoint of the one mankind, from the standpoint of the change into a new international security and development architecture from the standpoint of an African continent completely and totally developed at the highest level, so that every nation will have a right to develop its citizens to their fullest potential. That's really the mission that we have, and it's coming. This thing is coming down the line towards us. You reach out and meet it, and you can do something about it. And with that in mind, I want to show you this interview of a young man who I find very inspiring, who is in Uganda. His name is Timothy Ninsima, and he is thinking about the progress of his nation, the progress of Africa, and the progress of all nations. And I think you'd like to hear what he has to say in reflection as we discuss the major strategic developments that happened before we filmed this interview, which included the late August meeting of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization in Tianjin, China. So thanks very much. Come back tomorrow and then on Wednesday as well. We'll have more content. Tomorrow we'll have Garland Nixon, and we need your help. So subscribe, share this, watch out for emails about when we're going live, and that'll be a big help to build this channel. Thank you. Here goes.
Hello, I'm Daniel Burke with the Schiller Institute, and I'm proud to introduce you to someone who I've known for a couple of years now. This is Timothy Ninsima. He's a graduate finalist for a Bachelor of Science in Petroleum Geoscience and Production, and he's awaiting his graduation in January of 2026 from Makerere University in Kampala. He served as the president of the Makerere University Petroleum and Geology Society from 2023 to 2024. He's an energy enthusiast and a young upcoming Pan-Africanist and African activist. So thank you very much for having this interview with me today, Timothy. How are you?
All right, Daniel, thank you for having me.
Great. I've been working with Helga LaRouche to try to organize international youth dialogues. And Timothy and we spoke partly because of the fact that we at the Schiller Institute really wanted to support the efforts of students in Makerere University to support the East Africa crude oil pipeline, which a couple of years ago was a major effort to propagandize against this, coming from certain European figures, and to try to prevent Uganda from having, and other parts of East Africa from having, the economic development that they deserve. But we began to have in-depth conversations about the principles of the coming 50 to 100 years of human society, of human civilization, and the major changes that are happening in the world today. And that's why we're here today. It's because we're continuing to have those conversations. So the first thing I want to pose to you is the effects or the significance of these major developments that have happened in China since the end of August. We had the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting in Tianjin, which represented a huge majority of the Eurasian nations and their populations. And then we also had the 80th anniversary of the defeat of fascism held in Beijing, in the anti-fascist war, World War II, the defeat against the Japanese in particular at that point. And this marks the beginning, I think, and Helga Zepp-LaRouche has urged us to consider, that these kinds of developments, if you look at what they really represent and how these leaders from the Global South are collaborating really with the Bandung spirit, from the spirit of the Bandung Conference of 1955, that we're looking at the beginning of a new era in human history, in which peace through development is becoming the dominant concept of international relations among all countries except for the so-called Western countries that are persisting in their wrong-headed and really disastrous policies at the moment. So my question to you is, as you reflect on this, what do you think is this new situation, and specifically, what does it have to do with the future of young people in the global south?
Thank you very much for such a wonderful question. I think the new situation means well for the youth in the global south. The new situation, which has manifested, creates opportunities. It means peace for the world. Opportunities where the youth in the global south have to shape their own destiny. Opportunities where the youth will stand proud and they look at themselves that what did we do to make our countries great again. The Shanghai Cooperation, which was started in 2001, consisting of member states like China and Russia, has beautiful goals as how we saw last week. And among these goals is to strengthen mutual trust, friendship between member states, and also encouraging cooperation between member states in spheres such as politics, trade, economy, science, and technology. Now, for the youth in Global South, science and technology presents opportunities where the youth now have to work hand in hand to make sure that they innovate, and do everything to make sure that our countries are now on the global stage. The youth are presented now with an opportunity to engage in politics, which make their countries bigger players on the global world stage, and also to participate in trade, among others, but also not participating because they also have to are presented with an opportunity to interrogate the existing financial architecture. The youth now should ask themselves, why is it that the global south has been lagging behind for so long, and their economies are designed in the way that monies flow from their countries to the West. So when we look at opportunities such as that, when we look at the Shanghai Cooperation and the parade which was hosted, we should be energized as the youth in the global south to participate in anything that makes our countries great. And we should also interrogate the existing imperialistic narratives which have made us inferior, because events such as those which were events such as the Shanghai Cooperation and other events which have been happening like the BRICS among others, should really teach us a lesson that we should rise up in unity and do everything to make our countries going, because we are not children of a lesser god. We can also become like other countries, but we should do that through equality. And if there is a situation that is making us unequal, we should rise up and challenge it. So if it means to go in the military, like how I saw the young Chinese in the military, we should go there. Like if it means that participating in innovation, as long as everything is making us great, we should do anything. Now, looking at the parade, I closely watched the parade. I think it's one of the biggest parades, bigger than that of 2019, where the Chinese were marking 70 years since the setting up of their country. But it was a well-staged event. I saw uniformity everywhere. It was a massive event. But I think that event was meant to send a message to the West that there is a new developing global world order, a world order where China, Russia, and the countries are the contenders and opposing to the existing order of the West, which has been making countries, which has been deciding for countries, which has been really doing anything to suppress developing countries. So we should So that parade, because we saw military equipment ranging from new to old, we saw advanced military equipment. I think that one showed that China could be in the future, could be a very big alternative, should provide a very big, could be like a better alternative to the United States, and even it can give guarantees for security, what the US can give, even the Chinese could give. But also for the youth in Global South, I think this parade shows should also awaken our minds to see that there is a new developing global world order where we should take part, and also we should participate to make sure that we shape our own futures and our own destinies.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
And I noted your comment about interrogating the present international financial order, which of course was discussed significantly at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization meeting, including from Russia. I believe it was President Putin who discussed the need to ensure that the neo-colonialist forms of financial control are no longer allowed to continue, and that this is reformed. And then, of course, you have from China the proposal for major developments towards a Shanghai Cooperation Organization Development Bank, which would be further way of really consolidating this devotion to establishing the financial architecture for development across the global South. So very, very interesting to see what will come from that. You know, I want to raise something that stood out to me recently from the from Russian press. I saw an interview my friend sent me with the Director General of Rosatom, whose name is Alexei Likachev. And it was an interview basically about how China and Russia's going to help China to massively continue the expansion of their nuclear power capability. But the thing that really stood out for me from the comments was that he said, "I think we can predict cooperation both in breadth and in depth, not for decades, but for centuries." And this strikes me as a completely different, I mean, it's an expression of the new paradigm that you could have nations cooperate on the frontiers of science and have a confidence that they could do that over a century or centuries into the future. So if it is true that we can get to this stage where nations can collaborate on scientific development over the course of centuries, what should we focus on? What is it that's going to really lift the human species up? What's your view?
Yeah, thank you very much. First of all, I think there is no wrong in nations collaborating. Every sovereign nation should collaborate with each and every state it feels like, as long as it's not encroaching on the liberty of others. The collaboration should be in mutual interest and mutual benefit. But we've been having an order where cooperation has been defined to us by the hegemonic powers. But I think, speaking particularly for Africa, the cooperation or the advancements we should focus on are those which should make our continent great. And for me, there are three which I feel that these ones, if we don't have them, can pose an existential threat to our nations, to our African nations. One, I think it's in energy. If we can do collaboration in energy, where we develop energy which should allow us to industrialize, where we develop energy which allows us to exist, to cook our food, to use it in transportation, because energy particularly is everything. Everything is energy. I'm even able to speak to you because of energy. I charge my phone. So, but we find that countries in the global south, particularly in Africa, are energy poor. So I think the collaboration should be more in energy. For example, we can also collaborate in nuclear energy and nuclear technology. I think there is no harm in African countries collaborating in such spheres, because we know nuclear energy provides better power or more power than other energies. But we find that we are in a situation where we are producing uranium for others. For countries, for example, Niger was producing uranium for France, and Niger is energy poor. Uganda is producing only 2,000 megawatts. For sure, you cannot industrialize with 2,000 megawatts. You cannot. So if there is cooperation in energy, producing fossil fuels, as long as we can get energy, producing nuclear energy, nuclear technology, and even we can also collaborate in renewables. We have no problem with renewables. But as long as they add on our energy power, I think there is no harm in collaborating in such advancement. Another one is food sovereignty. We find that in Africa, we have a challenge. We have beautiful land. We have beautiful climate, but we find that we don't have food. I think if we have collaboration in food so that we can ensure our own food sovereignty, it should not be about food security. It should be about food sovereignty. Can we ensure that we have food in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years? We should have that stable supply, because somebody cannot think about artificial intelligence when he's hungry, when he has not eaten. I think you first cater for the stomach before anything comes. So we can also collaborate in food. We can also collaborate in other technologies. For example, artificial intelligence. Right now, I think Africa has been left out. You can see that China is investing DeepSeek as an AI. America is investing ChatGPT. But for what are we investing as Africans? We are investing none. We are just spectating. I think we should also, if there is a collaboration in technology such as artificial intelligence, that would be a very good one. It could also make sure that we also rise up to the global stage and we be diners, not waiters on the dinner table or an international table. Then I think finally we can also collaborate in advanced health care, because in particular speaking for Africa, our health care is not so good. We find that we have dilapidated infrastructure as far as health care is concerned. We cannot produce our own vaccines sometimes, because in COVID we were busy lamenting, looking for free vaccines, but countries were vaccinating theirs. So if we could have, I think, collaboration in ensuring that we have advanced health care, so that we have a healthy population, that could be good for our continent, particularly speaking for that. But also, I think because I'm an energy enthusiast, the collaboration could also be in fossil fuels.
Yes. Because
Uganda, particularly where I come from, is a country which is producing oil with around 6.5 billion barrels and 1.4 recoverable. So I think countries, and China is doing well in this field, because their companies have come to work with our companies to see that we collaborate in the area of fossil fuel, where we develop our reserves, we transport, because China is doing a lot. I think if we can do more collaboration in areas such as fossil fuels, that could be great for our continent, particularly speaking for Africa, and also good for the larger global south.
Thank you. I mean, you've addressed you've addressed a lot of the specific things that you think need to be done for the areas that you think need to be done for Africa in this type of collaboration. Let me ask you to say a little bit more specifically about the situation for African youth, and if you could also speak to your identity as a Pan-Africanist, what is the future for young people within that framework, as you see it?
The future, pardon?
In other words, you've spoken about you've spoken about these areas of cooperation on science and technology that you think need to come forward for African nations. And I'd like you to expand on what is in particular the situation for African youth, what should be done for African youth now and into the future. And I wonder if you can add some thoughts about what it means that to you that you identify as a Pan-Africanist. What does that imply? For many of the people listening to this may not really understand how you think of it.
I identify as a Pan-Africanist because I think I have views that are designed to make our continent great. I think it's also part of me to do anything to make sure that Africa is like the big superpower countries we see all. And that should be done through peace, through activism, through opposing neo-colonial narratives that are designed to make us inferior. Because remember, I told you that we are not children of a lesser God. If others are like us, that means we can be like them. But the situation, I think what the African youth should be, I think we need a mindset change, because what I see Africa, that we've been decolonized and our minds have been decolonized. We might have survived the classical colonialism where we used to fight battles, but now I think the bigger problem is in our minds, because you find that I'm not meaning to demean this, but you find that an African youth is dying to watch maybe Western football when there are football leagues in Africa, and he cannot. He feels that it's only Premier League, it's only maybe La Liga, Serie A, which is the most, which are beautiful leagues. But remember, we also have our leagues, and those leagues became powerful because they were supported. I think we also need to empower the African youth to think that he's not a child of a lesser God, and he can do anything, and he can become a great person who can develop his continent. It's all about changing his mind, decolonizing everything, doing everything to decolonize his mind.
Thank you very much.
Mm.
Well, I think you've covered a lot. This is really productive conversation. I guess I want to sort of come to a cap on it and sort of turn to another perspective. Of course, with the Schiller Institute, as you know, we've been doing everything we can to introduce the idea of a new international security and development architecture and certain principles that would be required for that to become a just world architecture for every nation and for all the peoples within those nations, such that people can reach their fullest potential. We're working very hard here in the West to try to change our governments away from these policies that are so damaging. And Mrs. LaRouche has produced, for example, a new statement, Mrs. Helga Zapp-LaRouche, calling on the nations of the West to join hands with the Global South and this new paradigm and cooperate with it to create this new and productive future for the species as a whole. But one of the hypotheses that we have is that what you need to do if you're going to change governments is that you have to, change the policies of governments, change the ideas that are behind those governments, is that you need to have a movement of young people, students, youth, people who realize that there's no future without this type of cooperation, that we're headed towards a real catastrophe, which we've seen many expressions of that recently, and we see it especially in the ongoing destruction of lives in in the genocide that Israel is perpetrating on Palestine. Of course, many other horrific developments that are happening all over the world that are driven by this kind of colonialist mindset. So we have to gather people together to challenge that and replace these terrible anti-human ideas with true ones that would carry us forward into the future in a peaceful and productive way, harmonious way. So I want to hear your thoughts on that. Is it possible? How would we do it? How do we organize young people to take responsibility for the next 50 years and to have a vision, a beautiful vision that they can fight for? What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's beautiful. What you've said is true, that we should organize the youth, but I think we can do it in a way that we organize forums such as this, productive forums, and also supply literature to teach them. Because what I've seen in Africa here is that people are misinformed. People don't have the information, the right information, and also sometimes the media they watch ends up putting a narrative which is not true. For example, when you see in most of the media which we watch, Western media, when you see the bombardments of innocent children in Gaza, sometimes and they show you one side. Sometimes you think that you should support the killing of the innocent children in Gaza, but that's not true. I think it's all about bringing up alternative media, the alternative information, and that information should be good. That information should be true, and it should change our narratives and also wipe away the neo-colonial minds. But we can do it in forums such as this, organizing conferences, international conferences, and I've seen Schiller Institute is doing great wonders in that. Also publishing publications. Let's write so that we can ensure that we are equals. We can ensure that we develop the global south and also make peace in our world, but through another architecture.
Timothy, it's just really a pleasure to talk to you. I'm so glad we had this chance, and I think we have to have another conversation soon that we can share with people, because your voice is really important for people to hear all over the world.
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Take care. Talk soon.
Thank you.